Hi, I'm Ted. This is the Real Ted G podcast. Thanks for joining us. Today we have Bing
Hello, sir.
and a topic, something that you cannot buy, something that has, well, anyway, I was going to be very, very philosophical and
And then I got
over.
up to check the
Yeah.
camera.
So, but here's, the one, Bing, what's the one thing that no amount of money can buy?
Time
Correct. And
happiness, but time.
some amount of money can buy some happiness, at least laughs. And well, anyway, back to time. Time in real estate is not our enemy. And I think I mentioned that, Bing, and you said, "Oh, well, what do you think I mean when I say time is actually not our enemy?"
Well, it can't really hurt you. It's not attacking you. It's really just a mode of measurement.
Yeah, and a lot of times, if a client asks for something, okay, I'm not saying don't do it, but sometimes take a minute, do it right. So it might not be instant gratification. Let me change this on your property. Let me change. Let's figure it out. But time is not necessarily our enemy in real estate. For instance, when a client calls and maybe they're on the agitated state because of a mistake that was made, something is printed wrong, something is printed inaccurate, something is inaccurate on the internet, and they might be a little bit more agitated than you're used to, talking to people. And I do follow this advice. Well, actually, I kind of follow this philosophy. And when a client is actually very agitated, and it happens even to me, I know, Bing, you're very shocked, right?
No. Sometimes I do get shocked. I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute. He's not like Mr.
Perfect.
Positive all the time, But that's human.
I mean, I try to. Yeah, I know. No one can be Mr. Positive all the
I'm
time.
certainly not all the time.
No, and I'm not either. And I hate to. I'd hate if people thought that I was, because we all have downtime. We all have our ups and we all have our downs, and we all have our moments where maybe I sometimes am the agitated one, or maybe I'm the one that's being a little short. So but back to if a client's calling, you have to I always take the approach, or text, and there's other issues with just texting as well. That's another story. That should be a whole podcast there, Bing. But when a client, if they're saying something and they're agitated or even angry, it's very, very easy to be reactive, and that's definitely almost never the right approach. Very few instances can I say that I think reactive to that level of that agitation could be the right approach. I'm sure there is an instance where it would be, but
De-escalation is the best way to do it. I mean, sometimes it's just like, all right, well, I could see that this is like at least in my own personal life, I'll just say, okay, this is getting a little crazy. Like, let's just.
Well, I always
get
take
some
into
space.
account that there's a kick the dog theory in real estate. When your client is yelling at you, it's where the reference is, we're the goldfish. So it's when an individual comes back from work who had a bad day at work, they yell at their spouse, possibly. Then the spouse yells at the kids, and the kid kicks the dog bites the cat, and the cat eats the goldfish. So a lot of times, we're the goldfish. We're the facilitator. We're just in our little bowl. We're swimming around. But a lot of times, and so ever since I've heard that metaphor for real estate and the real estate agent themselves, we're the goldfish. Ever since I heard that, you kind of have to, I digest information maybe differently than other people. Sometimes I digest my food differently too. But when you digest it, you think, and I took it to heart to understand. Wait a minute, that's right. Someone could be having a bad day, and maybe it was their fault, maybe it wasn't. We all get bad days, and so ever since then, I always do take into account, and if it's possible, as I'm listening to the person, and again, de-escalation starts with listening, acknowledging, and I'm not here to to teach psychology, but what I can teach is human behavior, and so I always just think let me stop. And if it was an angry text, don't react to the text immediately. And if you do take this stop, think, wait. So you stop for a second, just don't respond, don't do anything. Even if you're on the phone with the person, just let them vent. Think of where they might be coming from. Think of what their day might have been like. Think of their lashing out in some way, and it's not necessarily directed towards you. So you just, and when you start to think about that, you put yourself in their shoes, old phrase, and I am always impacted by that. If I start, when I'm able to put myself in someone else's shoes, the only thing that comes to my mind is I almost want to say, apologize. I'm not even the one directly related to their issue, possibly, but I just apologize. I think apologizing is like such a cool thing to do, because you're acknowledging that somebody had the short end of the stick. And I mean, of course, apologize for our own behaviors that may have led to that, but let's pretend they're not. Just say, well, I'm sorry, I apologize if you didn't get a hold of me for a few hours or something. It could be as simple as that. And that can actually talk about de-escalation. That alone could actually literally tell someone that acknowledgement, and just that, let's, and then wait. If it's something about an issue or a challenge that has to be corrected, wait. Take some time to think about the best solution. Say that to your client or an agent who's agitated or angry. When agents get angry with what's going on around them on some transaction, and they come in and they're just yelling and screaming. And yes, it happens. I think some of you know who I work with, so you know that there's yelling, or who I've worked with. That there's yelling and screaming. And yes, and again, stop. My yelling, screaming, crying. My favorite phrase to say to an agent, because it always breaks the ice, is stop. There's no crying in real estate. Only applies with I could say there's no yelling in real estate, but everyone knows that's not going to be true.
Oh, jeez.
So, and then wait and say, okay, let's strategize our next options, our next move. If a client calls me and says, my house is not selling, I want you to sell it. And that all I hear is, I'm motivated to get this done. I'm trusting you, Ted, to get this done. And all I can feel, they could be yelling it at me. All I feel is, okay, I have to appreciate how much trust they have in me, because they're going to the trouble to voice what they really want to do. So I can almost appreciate everything. So, and then if you give them back a plan, doesn't have to be in that moment. Even if you take a few minutes and say, acknowledge their feelings. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, let me check on everything I can check on, whether it's hits on the website, whether it's how do our photos fare on the internet. Do we, let's see what we can correct. And then you go back to them with your time and you say, okay, here are some of our options. I don't want to say surprised, because I think human beings are always very gracious. So I actually am never surprised at how well they take information or strategy. But in the meantime, I could see their appreciation. So when someone is agitated or yelling and screaming and crying, stop, think, wait. And then we have three choices. We could be reactive, which usually involves similar amount of agitation against that individual or person, and that's not good. Now that's two forces really fighting each other, and that can cause a lot of friction and sometimes an explosion. That's reactive. And you can also be inactive, and that means just not doing anything. That may or may not be the best approach. But if you're proactive, where you come up with a solution or a strategy, that's proactive. Let's work on correcting what needs to be corrected. I had a client where I met them for the first time at their home about two weeks ago. One, two. All right. Boy, these days are blending. And I walk in for the first time, and they said they had actually experienced a photo shoot with a different photographer than I use. I did not send him there. There was that's a different episode. So I walk in, and they're just there, and they're not almost agitated, and they say, "Oh, Ted, we have a big problem." And I'm thinking, did the cesspool cave in?
Oh, jeez.
You want to talk big problems? And they actually said they said we hate the photos the photographer took. And I said, "Oh, good news. That one I know how to solve." And I said, "We're obviously going to use my photographer because I swear by my photographer." And case in point, that was actually the easy solve. Our next solve is their real challenge is that they want their house sold. So this Saturday, we've obviously put the property on the market. We're on our MLS system. We're in West Hampton. We're one of the most competitively priced homes in West Hampton at 1.129, and it's a great house. It actually has deeded water rights. So I'll be there at 15 Baycrest tomorrow, 12 to 2. If you want to join me in person as opposed to on our podcast, you could feel free to stop in 15 Baycrest, West Hampton. Okay. Well, anyway, I digress. So so now the only thing that I have to do now from this point on is obviously sell their home. So we're on the market. We got great photos. We have everything ready. Tomorrow I get to show it for the first time, and I'm really excited about it. Again, though, it wasn't reactive. It wasn't, "What are you talking about? The photos are bad. What are you talking about? We just paid so much money for these photos." It was, I had the answer. It's great when you have the answer, but sometimes you don't. And maybe the answer would have been, "Well, wait. Let's see about getting a different photographer, or let's see about editing the photos that exist." So anyway, back to being reactive versus proactive. Okay, I'm going to bring another photographer in here. I'm actually going to bring him here in literally in 2 days from now. We're not even going to skip a beat, or whatever. I mean, so anyway, Bing. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, you were on a roll, man. I didn't want to interrupt you, but
sometimes I'm on a bagel.
I like my bagel scooped and toasted, by the way. Just a fun fact. But I think that, and something that was going through my mind when you were saying this is, it doesn't have to be today or right now. I always had the tendency to just, when I get something in my head or someone makes a suggestion, I'm like, boom, right now we're doing it. Whereas, okay, like, let me think about it for a second. Like yesterday, perfect example. I was thinking about reaching out to someone that I haven't spoken to in a couple of months, and after reanalyzing a situation, and I was like, you know what? Let me just sleep on it and see how I feel. And then I slept on it, and I was like, yep, that was stupid if I did that. Like, we're just gonna keep it pushing with how it was, And
I do find that most times we're reactive. There's an emotional link.
Yep.
And that is the hardest thing to overcome. And that's why I hope that it's only a joke, and I hope people understand it's only a joke when I say that I'm dead inside. And when it comes to real estate, my clients appreciate that because it has to do with business. So my client could have a neighbor that was a nosy neighbor and said, "Your house is only worth $999, not 1.5 million," and it doesn't it doesn't affect me, so I can react to it in a very calm manner. I had a neighbor come stop by a house when I was showing it to another buyer, and they did say, "That house, you're never gonna get that kind of money." And and I looked at the guy and see, I have no I pride myself on no emotional attachment, and I just looked at him in a nice calm way, and I said, "Oh, I mean, I only have 2 reshows today. Well, yeah, you never know. Was I going to say, no, you're wrong? No, I'm going to show him I'm wrong. It's going to take me an extra 2 weeks, but I'd rather see him, get the flyer that says, this house just sold for, 1.5 million.
Yeah, that's way better.
Yeah. And so that's when you take emotion out of it. It was so easy to accomplish that because there's no emotion involved. But you're saying like, reach out to someone that you may or may not, you may have not talked to in a very long time for certain reasons. When you involve that emotional attachment, it's hard for even the best people. And I mean, I have trouble with it too. The moment we attach emotion to it. But yes, back to just stopping and calming down. I remember one of my agents, he was in the office and there was a little mini emergency. There was something, a client needed a phone call back. And I was in the middle of doing something. I forget what it was, but because it was about 10 years ago. But I remember being in the middle of doing something, whether it was putting together a market analysis or, maybe looking up comps. He noticed that I didn't stop what I was doing to go ahead and do that. I didn't stop doing something to go chase a squirrel, let's say. And he did comment on it. It was a very nice compliment. He said, "You really didn't like skip a beat. You literally, the message or the phone call came in, here, this ear. And then I continued to do what I was doing. And then I calmly got up when I was finished with what I was doing. And I calmly got up and, whatever was in this ear suddenly was like, okay, now it's time to dial the phone and do that next. It wasn't about the anxiousness. And I think if you do it anxiously, then I'm going to be on the phone and say, listen, lady, I don't know what you expect of me. That kind of reaction, as opposed to, okay, here we go.
Just do one thing at a time. You have enough time to do it.
That's a great topic. You really can only do, people that say that they multitask.
No, that's BS.
Yes. I mean, people could believe I multitask, but again, I'll sit and do everything that needs to be done. But you do it when you can do it, everything one at a time, you do a better job of each task.
Exactly. I mean, it's just, when I work and do stuff, I make sure that I do like one thing at a time, because if I start working on two different projects at once, which I used to do at certain points, something would always need to get fixed later. I would need to re-update. I would need to like fix a title. I need to fix a typo. I realize I'm like, oh, that audio doesn't sound right. I have to redo the audio. It doesn't happen a lot, fortunately. But it's not an effective way to get work done. Whereas if you just took like the 5 to 10 minutes to finish what you were doing and then move on to the next task, you could save yourself like an hour of work.
Like today, we took a few hours out of my morning, which is usually a quiet morning. It's a Friday morning in the summertime. So we took a couple of hours and, we filmed a few of these podcasts. That's why I do have other clothes. I wore the same clothes today. I didn't change in between podcast reels. But yes, so we're doing it. And I don't know if you agree, but it's the only thing I'm really doing. Correct?
Yeah.
We started at 10. By 10:15, I had accomplished probably more stuff in real estate than most agents accomplish in a whole week. So, I'm not saying that to be funny or to be condescending. I'm just saying it to be real. We should start our work day a little earlier as an industry. So anyway, so by 10 o'clock, I did actually respond to about 10 people that had made offers on a property that we've accepted one of them. So I had to say we've accepted an offer and it wasn't yours to the other 9 people that had their cards on the table for us. I did that, and then I catered to putting what I call an appraisal packet together for not just one of my own sales, but one of my agents had one of her first appraisals, so we put together her appraisal packet together, and she was on her way. So I felt very accomplished, and then then it was time for you, Bing. It was your time, and I promised you that we would put together the podcast, film them, so you have your editing process to go, and we can continue to be very regular on our podcast. And that was it. And I don't know. Do you agree? I think I've been very focused on this.
Yeah. We've been at it since 10 o'clock, really, and
yeah, we picked the right day too, because I do agree. I don't actually get too many crazy phone calls on a day like today, on a Friday. Usually the craziness definitely starts on sometime around Monday afternoon. It doesn't even start Monday morning. Our craziness Is this a different topic? We'll go with it. So my craziness at least, it really starts around Monday, like sometime around 12 o'clock. I feel like I could go all day, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a nice, awesome, calm week. And then by 12 or 1 o'clock Monday, just when I really feel like a drink. No, it's suddenly okay. Oh no, everyone's waking up. Oh no, everyone's waking up. And then obviously Tuesday and Wednesday come around, and it continues. So sometimes it's very easy in life and very easy in real estate to chase squirrels, to continue to chase all different squirrels, and that accomplishes nothing, And back to our time. Stop, think, and wait. When we were kids, I don't know if when you were a kid, because when I was a kid and when you were a kid are very different timelines.
Yes.
When I was a kid, it was all about stop, drop, and roll.
Oh,
in case something, you were in a fire. If you caught fire, I loved it. Stop, drop, and roll, and say no to drugs, kids. So those are the two lines that I remember.
I remember that.
You remember the stop, drop, and roll?
Yeah, I remember that.
So as an adult, I learned a different 3 words: stop, think, and wait.
So. I think that saves your life more than stop, drop, and roll these days.
Probably. I mean, these days I feel like I'm next to a fire extinguisher everywhere I go. No joke. There's one on the floor right there.
Really?
Yeah. Look.
Oh, look at that. Oh, what? Okay, he wasn't even kidding. There really is one.
I'm not kidding. I put out fires all the time.
You should start spraying people around the office with that.
Now that can be taken the wrong way.
No. Man, what the hell?
I'm not gonna spray people with my hose.
Oh, yo.
You may be editing that one.
We might be. No.
This is the only time we can take time away. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, God.
It's okay. Society can I don't mind. Society should grow a little bit of a thicker skin.
They could grow something else too, but I don't know if you want to say that on the podcast either.
Nope, I won't be saying that on this podcast.
But no, I hear your point about stop, drop, think. Like it's stop, think, wait. Excuse me, I'm combining the two together.
Stop, think, wait.
Stop, think, wait. It's
reactive, proactive, inactive.
Because the thing is too, like a lot of people they also have analysis by paralysis where they're in between that inactive and proactive state. As
a self-diagnosed procrastinator, I will say I do understand what you're saying. Oh, I've had procrastination since I was in school. Always wait at the last minute.
It's tough. It's tough to break that.
Oh, I've procrastinated. There is one phone call. Actually, there were 2 phone calls that I had to make this week. One I've already made, which is great. And it always turns out better than you think. I think 90% of the time. It was I had to call a buyer and give him the counter offer that obviously was not, because it's a counter offer, it's not accepted. So the conversation was fine. He's like, "Oh, okay. I'm actually going away to for just the weekend, and then I'll be back." I'm like, "Okay." And my sellers, they're cool. They gave a counter offer. So now my second phone call is to my sellers, not to give them any kind of bad news, just to say, okay, so this is what's going on. And obviously the buyer is still interested. So we're in very good shape. But yes, there were just a couple of phone calls. It's almost like the phone calls that isn't necessarily like, they're taking it, everything's a go. You always want those phone calls to make. It's the it's the other phone calls like, they're saying maybe, and the other side of the phone calls that I don't like to make, which I just made this morning, was telling all those people that they are not obtaining the house, and that's kind of that's always a little bit of a drain. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's I relate to that a lot because I have some phone calls I got to make later too where it's like, ooh, this is going to require a lot of work, and then in reality it's not. It's gonna be like 20 minutes at most where you just have to explain the process. So like in my business, a lot of times I have to make phone calls like talking about technical stuff to people that aren't technically savvy. So sometimes I have to play tech support and I have to guide people through and help them find a solution. And, I'll sometimes be like, oh, I got to find like the right amount of time to do this. And it's like, well, it's really, there is no real right amount of time to make that phone call either.
Yes. Time after time, you hear that.
Yeah. I mean, there's not really a right time other than the time that's next available because it's all going to require, moving things around or shifting things around. And it's like, you know what, just, you got to take care of it at the end of the day. And that helps me a lot because it's like, when you realize, like, okay, well, you just got to take care of this, then it gets done. And
Yeah,
it's
it
not.
just
It's like
has
you
to.
said. It's not as bad as you think it will be. And if it is bad, you know, there's a lot of good at the end of it once you hang up.
There's always something to learn,
Yes.
even from a bad experience.
Even from a bad experience, it's always a learning experience. And then when you're 85 and you're sitting in your rocking chair, nothing really matters anymore.
That's why I bought a rocking chair already. I have it in my basement.
Is that when you pretend you're 85 and nothing matters anymore?
Nope, I don't sit on it. I figure the sooner I sit on it, the sooner I'll be 85.
Oh, so why did you buy it?
Actually, it was at a client's house, and I was like, I like the rocking chair. You always think you have a room. You always think you have space. You always think you have time.
Yeah.
You always think you have space. I'm like, I'll find the space for it. And now I've.
Then you're like, oh no, what did I do?
Yeah, I know. Well, so
Speaking of
remember,
time.
stop, think, wait.
Stop, think, wait. And speaking of time,
We're out of it.
it seems like we're out of it. So where can they find us?
They could where they can find us. They could find us on Spotify, the Real Ted G Podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook,
Instagram,
Instagram,
and wherever you get your podcast.
and wherever you get your podcasts.